Thank you for watching the video series on installing solar panels on an RV. You'll want to watch this video if you want to see where I got the components I used and why I plan to use each one. First of all, I want to let you know I got the main components of the system used. That includes the solar panels, the batteries, and the solar charge controller. It saved me a lot of money. So if you'd like to know how I went about getting those, feel free to leave a comment and I'd be happy to give you more information about that. After getting the major components, I still needed a lot of components to complete the system, and it just didn't seem practical to try to hunt them all down used. So I mail ordered most of them, and most of them came in one day. So now I'll show you what components I got and how I plan to use each one. What do we have here? I ordered all the stuff that I needed to complete my solar project, and the majority of the things came today, so I feel like a kid in a candy store here, about to unwrap my packages. Let's see what I got. Here's the first one. NL fuses. Those are overload fuses to prevent something catastrophic from happening if the one of the positive terminals on the batteries or anything connected to the positive terminal of the battery shorts to ground. It'll keep the RV from burning up. Alright, OxGuard. Never been so excited to get a little tube of stuff. This is antioxidant compound, and you put it on any joint, any electrical connection you make. That'll help keep it from oxidizing, keep it working longer. It reminds me of shortly after I bought my used RV, I started having problems with the voltage. It was going down to like 7 or 8 volts, and I thought, what the heck's going on with these batteries? It turns out it wasn't the batteries, it was the battery terminal was corroded, and so it wasn't making a very good connection. So antioxidant compound will help, and also I'll tell you in a little while about how I chose sealed batteries instead of flooded batteries, and there are advantages and disadvantages to both. But one advantage to the sealed batteries is don't have to worry about the corrosion on the battery terminals. Okay, now for my last 2 packages. Actually, make that 3. I can't count. Okay, these are my number 2 cables for the inverter. I ordered my inverter from N-Power, and apparently the inverter hasn't come yet. There wasn't too much more to put express air when I ordered the cables, so I figured I might as well. I want to get this project done. So I'm assuming the inverter will be here pretty soon, but I have the cables for hooking it up. These are nice heavy-duty cables. I'll explain when I get to talking about the inverter why there's 2 sets of cables for one inverter. Actually a really smart idea. Now this is the package I'm really excited about. This next package is from Northern Arizona Wind and Sun. And the company has a really good reputation, and also they've got really good prices. So I decided to order as many components as I could from them. And they all came in the same box, very reasonable shipping rates. So let's see what I got here. A whole bunch of packing peanuts. Okay, this is the cable that goes from the shunt to the battery meter. Here's the trimetric. This is my battery meter, and Handy Bob, just Google Handy Bob and solar, and you'll find out why you should have one of these. It's definitely a must-have. It's kind of like not having it's kind of like driving a car with no gas gauge. You really need to know what's happening with your battery. So I'm looking forward to having this as part of my system. And here's my big baby box. No, it has nothing to do with babies. Just basically a box for circuit breakers. And so I'll be installing my circuit breakers in this box. Keep them neat and tidy. The circuit breakers should be in here somewhere. Oh, there's my disconnect switch. I got one that lets me choose from 2 different inputs. Not exactly sure yet how I'm going to use this, but I think I'll be able to put that to good use. It's really important to have a battery disconnect for safety. There's my shunt. That'll help let the battery meter measure how much current is coming through and coming from and going to my batteries. There's the big one. There's one of my 2 circuit breakers. Or is that both of them? Oh yeah, they're pretty small. Both of them there. And by process of elimination and the fact that this box is so big, this is my battery charger. Even though I'm planning to use mostly solar power to charge my batteries, I figure every once in a while it's going to be good to have something else. And my RV, as many others, comes with a Magnetech converter, which is a single stage converter, and it gives out a constant, I think it's 3.5 or 3.6, or I mean 13.6 volts, which is great for keeping the batteries about where they're supposed to be. Doesn't overcharge them if you don't have it plugged in for too many days, and if you're plugged in for a while, it'll charge them up. But I'm hoping to keep my batteries charged with the generator. That is, if I don't have solar for some reason. So that's why I got this. This is a 90 amp charger. Another advantage to having AGM batteries, having sealed batteries, is you can give them a higher charge. And 90 amps is a pretty good way to get those batteries charged up quick. And this will be a perfect complement to my solar power setup. It's going to be plugged in somewhere where I won't have to maintain it. It just runs when you switch it on. Otherwise, it's just there waiting. Okay, this last box is my battery trace. Nothing real exciting. I do kind of find it humorous how big this box is. It's the biggest box. Inside, 2 more smaller boxes. And inside the smaller boxes are my battery trays. So, wait a minute. Oh yeah, that's right, I ordered 3 of these. So each one has a box much bigger than it. I'm not really sure why they do that, but I'm sure they have their reasons. So, got my tray, got my hardware, and the J-hooks are in here. I ordered 1 tray by itself just so I could test to make sure it was going to fit. And when I was fairly sure that I'm going to be able to fit 4 of these in there, I went ahead and ordered the other 3. This was the only outfit I could find that had a tray the size of my battery. And it's a real nice tray, reasonable price. JEGS is the company. First time I've done business with them. So there, that's the majority of my supplies. Still got a couple more coming, but just about got everything I need to complete my project. Besides the components, I also mail ordered some of the wiring. Besides the wiring between the batteries, I also needed wiring to the fuses, the circuit breakers, the charge controller, and so forth. And keeping the wire run short makes a big difference. So it's important to size your wires as exactly as possible. Now, I've discovered that it's important to have the components already in place before you make your measurements. And it's possible to get lengths of wire and lugs and create the cables yourself if you know how to do it. But there's some complexity involved, and I've never done it before, so I decided to hire somebody to do the cables for me. And I had to get the measurements taken and bring them there. In order to make the measurements, I took a piece of wire loom. This approximates the width and size of the wire. The length will change depending on the bend that you need, and I approximated the runs that I needed. And then I took those measurements and took them down to the local marine supply store, and they made the cables for me. Well, here are the last two components of my system as far as I know. The bottom one is my inverter, which I haven't unboxed yet because I'm trying to finish the first step of my project, which is to get the solar charger working. And this is a lot of wire, and it's definitely more than I anticipated. And it turned out to cost a little bit more than I thought it would. But I had a local marine electronics store do the cable for me, something that I have no experience with. So I didn't relish the idea of having to figure out how to fit lugs on. And they did a really nice job. These are made to last. And so it cost me an hour of their time, plus $200 for all these cables. But I'm going to start hooking these up to the battery. Some of these are battery cables, some of these are inverter cables, some of them are for my charger, and these guys are for the solar. They don't have black. In marine they deal with red and yellow, I guess, but that'll add some color to my system. I should also mention I bought some other items at the marine supply store that I didn't think to order online, such as battery terminal connectors and battery bus connectors. That's one reason why I'm making this video series, so that you can know what you need in advance. When editing this video, I realized I never did film unboxing the inverter, but I'll show you where I plan to put the inverter, and then later in this video series I'll show you the inverter in place. It's back to cold, rainy weather here in Portland, Oregon. Yesterday was sure nice, and tomorrow is supposed to be a lot better. But today I'm focusing on the inside here. I'm going to give you an update on the progress I made last night. Did quite a bit last night, but it was dark, so I couldn't really film it. This cardboard thing is my mock-up inverter, and I've decided that's where the inverter is going to go. It's pretty easy to get to, but it's out of the way so that we don't really have to deal with it in the RV. I'm going to end this video on a cliffhanger. I didn't film what I'd intended to film, but I'll show you the rest of the process in future videos. In the next video, I'll show you how I went about wiring the panels that were already in place on the roof.